Hi guys, and welcome back to another one of my videos. Now, this one is for all you solar clients out there and those who with LuxpowerTek systems. This video is actually for you guys. So, a lot of you are asking me about how to change settings for charging of the batteries, especially with the off-peak rates, and if you've got the economy 7 tariffs or the off-peak tariffs or an EV tariff, and especially with the new flux tariff that's out with Octopus as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the settings for you and show you all that, and also I'm also going to put down my Octopus ID in the description as well. So hopefully if you are planning on switching to Octopus and you haven't done so already, so this applies to UK customers, please use my ID. That gets both of us a £50 credit on our utility bills. Okay, so how do we do this? So first of all, let's go back to let me just log out. So I'm going to now sign in. So this is the website, eu.luxpowertek.com. So I'll write that in the description. You can actually do this from your phone as well. In your phone settings, it's going to be when you log in. I'm just going to do that now quickly. I should have been prepared. Once you've logged in, on the bottom on the bottom of the screen, you've got 4 icons, and it's the last icon, the settings cog, and make sure you then click on read all if you haven't already done so. And then underneath you have application settings, charge settings, and discharge settings, and we're going to be interested in the charge settings and possibly discharge settings, but I'll come on to that, why we're going to be interested in that. And everything I talk about on here will also be on your phone too. Okay, so let's get started. So sign in, same details, same username and password as what you would use on your app itself. So have a look. So starting with the basics, solar yielding, just how much solar has been produced today and how much has been produced since the system was installed. Charging of the batteries, how much has been charged today and how much I've charged in total since the system was installed. Okay, this charging can be from solar, from the grid, any form of charging. Okay, feed-in energy. So how much I've exported and total export. So today, when I talk about today, I'm talking about from midnight to midnight. Okay, so today I've exported 0.1, but since I've installed it, it's been 7.7. But if you click on it, today how much I've imported and how much the total import been since the system was installed. And then on the final box is the consumption figures. So how many units I've actually used today and how much I've used in total since the system was installed. Now, my figures are all off, and the reason is I don't have a big solar system on my property because my roof doesn't support it. However, I do have electric car and off-peak charging. That's why my battery charging is very high right now, because I charge in the off-peak times, and as you can see here, I am literally just discharging my batteries and topped up with a little bit of solar in what my house is actually using. And so for me, the grid is pretty much zero all day long. So that's why there's differences in these figures. In a typical solar installation without grid charging, total usage will always be a lot higher than total import. So as a rule of thumb, if you're as a good way of working out whether solar has benefited you is if my usage is 4,519, and say for example the total import might be 2,300, therefore you can just conclude that what you have imported from the grid has been half your usage, and therefore over the course of this time frame you have benefited by having a 50% reduction in your bills. Okay, so that's how we do a quick calculation on how much you've actually saved. Right now, it looks here that I've not saved anything, and which is correct based on solar, but in actual fact, this import figure is frozen for now, and this will actually just go up. Okay, and so for me, my import will always be higher than my usage, because it's basically charged up the batteries. I do have 19.6 kilowatts worth of storage on my system. So we come down. This is just some serial numbers, and because I've got a twin charge controllers to give me twice the charge and discharge rates, and they've all got 3 batteries on each one. That's why I'm able to get a high charge and discharge rate. Here is your graphs. So you have the solar PV graph, which is in green, the battery, which is in blue, grid, which is in red, and then the consumption figures, which are in orange. So I know it's a bit difficult to see here because let's see if I can. I don't think I can make it bigger. No, it won't let me make it bigger. So from here, let's start at the bottom. So midnight. So again, it starts from midnight to midnight. So this is around about 3ish p.m. at the moment. As you can see, the grid and batteries. So the grid usage was here, battery usage there. So the difference between that is if is this usage figure. So my background usage. So my consumption was 709 watts. So that's my background usage in the property. My import was 7,900, and the battery was charging at 6,900. So essentially, I was charging at the full 7 kilowatts rate. So the squirrel pods is what I've got, or if you have the hybrid inverters, they do have a charge and discharge rates of 3,500 watts per hour, or 3.5 kilowatts. Some of yours will vary due to temperature. So mine's kept in a storeroom in the kitchen, which is a good temperature. So it's not very cold and it's not very hot. And therefore the conditions are pretty good for it to be on maximum. And that's why I've got that. The solar PV registering at 7.8 watts is just nominal background, what the CT clamps pick up. You've got to be aware that the CT clamps are not the most efficient. They do have a tolerance of a 2 or 3%. So solar showing us very little. So as time goes on, now from here you can see approximately 2:30, my batteries became pretty much fully charged as the battery usage went to 0. And the grid consumption was relatively back to normal again here. So here I'm only just paying, the usage is what I'm paying for the grid, which for me will be the off-peak rates. Then we come to 5:30 is when my tariff ends, and it then goes to 0 for the grid, and consumption and battery is pretty much neck and neck all the way through. And that's what you're going to see all the time here until the solar kicks in. Then about here you'll have the solar adding in consumption. So solar plus import equals consumption, and that's the way it is. So that's what these graphs mean. And then here is just the energy overview for the month of February so far, and it just gives you a bit of a quick glance, shall we say, at a glance of usage. So as you can see here, that's when I charge my car, that's when I charge my car, and I haven't charged the car since, and that's probably because I've not used it. And it also gives you battery storage, and these little green ones here gives you the solar production. Export to grid is in red, and pretty much I've got 0 export apart from the minor, the odd point ones which are negligible. So your graphs will be different to this. So that's how you would do look at and interpret what your system is doing and how your system is performing. All right. Next, we are going to go on to the maintain screen. So the data screen is just data for installers like us, and we would just be able to look at that and just check the different voltages and currents, etc., state of charges. So I won't worry about that. The configuration, again, I won't worry about. It's just if you wanted to import and add more dongles or pictures. So again, nothing to worry about. And overview, again, it just gives you a snapshot, but in not rather than a graphical format, just a little bit of a text format here. The one we're concerned about now is the maintain tab. So your station name, station IDs, click on read, and that then brings up everything. So power backup. So what we're going to be interested in is not the application setting, and so we've got the charge settings, discharge settings, and the reset. So we're not interested in reset either. So these two really are the main two that we're interested in. So system charge power rate 100%. So I want this to perform at full capacity. I want it to charge at the full 100% rate. If you wanted to, if you had issues with your incoming supply, say it was a reduced supply, so you only had a, say, a 60 amp fuse, then you can actually reduce the rate. So instead of charging at 77 kilowatts, which is equivalent to 40 amps, you could have actually reduced this to reduce the load on the system, and because then the more will be available to the house. AC charge, enable and disable, straightforward buttons. Charge power rate, again, how quickly, at what rate do you want to charge them at? Again, I'm charging them at full 100% rate. And battery charge level, how much do I want to charge them? I want them to be fully charged, so I put on 100%. If you have got a good size solar system and you know that you can produce a lot of sun, there's a lot of sun that can produce a lot of power. So what you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be filling it up with grid energy, only for then when the sun is shining for it to be exported. So what you can do, say, is in the winter periods, have this to maybe, I don't know, 60%, 70%. Everybody's different, so depending on your orientation. So as an example, I have a client who has a west facing system. So that means the production starts usually after about midday. And what he does is we've set his to charge at 50%. So 100% power rate, but level of 50%. What that does is it charges the batteries up to 50% capacity. So he has enough off-peak energy to use in the morning when they're getting ready, going to work, school, etc. Then when the sun, so he uses the off-peak energy in the morning rather than having to pay the full grid price. Then in the evening, then once mid-afternoon kicks in, the solar will then charge the batteries up to 100%, and therefore he can then use that energy. So he's using a combination of low off-peak rates plus solar to get the benefit, so he doesn't have to pay the peak energy prices. You have the timings. So charge time 1. Now here we've only got generally 1 off-peak rate per day, but if you did have 2 or 3 rates, you fill out the rest of these figures. But for me, you just type the numbers in here, what you want the charge time to be, and hit set, and it'll come up with a little window at the top to say set successfully. And then you set the end time and set. So mine is a 6 hour, so I use 6 hours. Next is, if you have a second set, you can put the second set of times in, or a third set, put the third set of times in. Charge priority, we don't bother with charge priority, so we just leave that disabled. And again, leave this one disabled because it's not, majority of us have now got lithium ion batteries and not lead acid batteries. Next part is the discharge settings. Now this is, again, we're charging at a rate of 100% because we want to utilize the full power of the system. Now here, this part is the on-grid cutoff. Now depending on the battery pack you have, will have a different depth of discharge rates. So for example, Greenlink's batteries have a depth of discharge of 0%. They can actually go down to 0. However, the Lux controllers right now haven't been upgraded to manage that. So that be a firmware release should be coming out shortly, I've been told, by the tech support team. So for safety reasons, we now leave this at 5%. And when it gets to 5%, level, the batteries will then stop discharging. Off-grid cutoff, you can leave that alone. We're not on off-grid. We're all on grid. So once all the upgrades and everything being done and all tested, then we can actually reduce that down to 0 to be able to get a full discharge of the batteries. If we batteries go down too much, then they then effectively have to, well, better word is not for a better word, it's hibernate. They do have to go into hibernation so that you don't completely discharge the batteries, and they'll only wake up properly when the solar is out, when the sun is out, so when it has excess solar energy for it to recharge back again. For some reason the AC side doesn't want to do from the AC. Forced discharge. Again, you've got 3 tables, same sort of stuff as a charging. So enable or disable the forced recharge, the power rate 100%, and when do you stop discharging at. So preset as 20%, which we can leave. So for those that are looking at the Flux tariff, which pay something like 30 odd pence for export energy, this is where you can put your discharge rates in. Put your settings in, put your timers in, and hit set. And what that does is it effectively discharges your battery. So the house will use whatever it needs first, and any excess will just automatically be discharged, exported, and therefore you can claim the export tariff. So if you do it right, and if you get your calculations right and your usage is right, with the new Flux tariff from Octopus, this might be good for you. Okay. And again, we don't bother with that one because we've not got a lead acid. So those are the settings at a glance. Now what I'm going to do is go on to the Octopus Flux tariff. Now the Octopus Flux tariff is it's just a new import-export tariff for people who have got solar and storage, and it over 24 hours, and it gives you some rates for peak and off peak. So let's have a look. What does it say here? Oh, check your rates. So let's check my rates. So here's my rates for my area, which is Yorkshire. So the day rate 33p, which is about normal, and exporting at 23p, which is brilliant compared to the 5p rates. The flux rate, which is your off-peak energy rate, so you import at 19.8, but you're only getting a 9.24 in exporting. The peak rate, this is the one that you really need to check, the 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. rate. It'll cost you 46p to import the electric, but at the flip side, it'll also get you 36.97. So what we need to do is to use this flux rate to completely charge our batteries and utilize energy in the house. So we're only paying 19.8 and charging our batteries for those 3 hours. And then in the peak time, we've got to make sure that we have enough energy to run through the day, and we especially to make sure we run through the peak and also do a little bit of discharging to try and get some units back for the off-peak, for the export rate. So yes, a little bit of work is required to try and balance it, and of course changing your habits a little bit. So do all your, I don't know, washing, ironing or whatever during the day or overnight, and try not to use that much energy between 4 and 7 p.m, etc. So that is an option. So that's one option of this flux rate. If you have an electric car, then you're better off with the Octopus, what we call the, so here's my rates. So this is what I'm on. So my rates are here. 5:30 till 23:30 is 38 pence, so it is higher than the normal rates. And then 11:30 to 5:30 I only pay 7.5p. I've had this tariff for about 6 months, so, and I believe the current one's a little bit higher than these, but you'll have to check once you get in touch. So those is the tariff that I have, and that's because I've got the car. So if you get a car, you're probably better off with this, although my export rate will only be 5 pence. So it's something that you have to then work out and balance out. Now, considering I'm not exporting a huge amount, then I'm better staying on with this tariff. If you're one of those that have a lot of solar production, a lot of production but not enough usage, and you are exporting, then you might be better off with the flux tariff. So everybody's different. It's best to work it all out. Okay, and like I mentioned, My sign up link is here, so I'm going to put that in the description too, and we can split £100 between us. Okay. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave a message. And remember, I am a solar installer, MCS registered, and I install Lux and Greenlink systems all the time. Thank you, and bye for now.